Wherever you are joining us from, welcome. We have a special presentation today brought to you by our partners at Everpure. But before we dive into that, the VMware User Group, or VMUG, is an independent, global, customer-led organization created to maximize members' use of VMware and partner solutions through knowledge, sharing, training, collaboration, and events. Get connected to a local VMUG community near you at myvmug.com. We have them all over the United States, all over the globe. So if you're looking for other VMware users to connect with, go to myvmug.com. Next, please use the Q&A function for all of your questions during the presentation today. I know it's easy to use the standard chat function, but please use the Q&A. This allows us to save your questions, and if additional follow-up is needed, we can follow through with that by using the Q&A function. And lastly, this session is being recorded. It will be distributed to all registrants in a wrap-up email, and it will be posted onto the VMUG YouTube channel. And without further ado, I'll turn things over to the Everpure team.
Perfect. Thanks, Tristan. Alex is going to bring up our slides here in a quick second, but while he's doing that, welcome everyone to a VMware presentation brought to you by Everpure Data, formerly the artist known as Pure Storage. Still go to some events and people go, Everpure, I've heard of this company. I know I've seen it somewhere. What is it? I say Pure Storage and they know me. Oh, I get it. The orange is slightly different, but I'm super pumped because Explore next week. And Alex, I have a confession. I actually like Vegas. I know everyone hates Vegas. I actually like it. Is that wrong?
Do you actually enjoy Vegas, or you just like being trapped in a hotel in a convention center the entire week you're there?
I don't know. I like the vibes. Both, when you're on personal time and event time, it's always good. We've already looped Tristan in. He's going to swing by the Everpure booth, and I hope you all will also be. Jim's already got some flack for actually liking Vegas, but yeah, man, we've already looped in Tristan and the VMUG team. They have to come by the Everpure booth, and people on this webinar should swing by too. Both Alex and I will be there. We have two. You have two sessions, and we've got one joint session. What?
Yep.
Remind me the. I think one's Tuesday at like 10, and you got the other one, which is more of the smaller booth session, right?
Yeah, there's the theater session we have where I'll be going through a couple of our big releases with active cluster file support and active cluster NVMe over Fabric support. So that's our vSphere Metro Storage Cluster solution for stretch storage, and so that'll be that. And then the other one is an enhanced version of what we'll be going through today, is kind of the mastering VCF with Everpure. So.
Yeah, going into more of the hybrid cloud stuff. So definitely, swing by the booth, swing by those sessions. Quick intros if you haven't met us before. We've done a couple of these, but my name's Matthew Webb. I'm out of Portland, Oregon. I'm a consulting field solutions architect. What is a field solutions architect? Basically, we're SEs in the field that work with customers around a certain vertical area. And my vertical area is virtualization. I spent about 7 years at VMware previous to joining Everpure about a year and a half ago. And it's been a fun ride, man. This is a great company and great products. Alex, you want to quickly do an intro?
Yeah, so I'm Alex Carver. Done several of these VMAX, probably met a fair amount of people that are on here as well. I'm the senior technical product specialist. That's just a made-up title that our boss came up so he could say he had TPS reports. That's really essentially what that title means. I'm on the product team. I'm a virtualization specialist on the product team. Um, and I've been up here for 11 and a half years, so seen a large majority of things. I was around when we were trying to poke and prod VMware to support external storage way back with, with the VCF 3 deployment when it was
Oh,
vSAN
yeah.
only. And then a little bit of NFS support came through there. And then finally in 4, we started getting a little bit more progress to external storage. And so it's been a long road to actually get to where we are today. But so it's always working great talking through some of our ways with VMware. So.
It is cool, right? Because I think the original release of VCF was like 2015, 2016, if I was looking at that right. It's
Sounds
it's
right.
it's now 10 years, right? So like, and that's what we're going to talk about today is, some of the, as you guys know, and as you've been learning at the VMUGs, is, VCF has changed dramatically since the early days. I was at VMware from, let's see, it was 2017 through basically 2025. and I was part of the vSAN team, which became the VCF sellers. And it was very prescriptive, right? So I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on telling you what VCF is. You guys have already joined a lot of these VMUGs. You know what VCF is as being the hybrid cloud platform that stitches all of the vSphere technologies or VMware technologies into one cloud platform. But like I mentioned, it's been around for a while, and what we're going to talk about is specifically what does that mean for storage, right? Because that's probably where the change has happened the most. Alex already kind of alluded to it. Very prescriptive early on, and thou shalt only be in this type of model. And what is really cool about the VCF of today, it's not thou shalt, it's all these flexibility options that you can deploy for both networking, compute, and storage. And so that's what we want to cover today and kind of clear up some of the myths and things that may be out there as far as old information. So just to reiterate, some terms we should cover when it comes into storage specifically. Some of these are just, generalities like the VCF fleet. It used to be you just have like one VCF instance and you've got your workload domains, your management domain. Now you've got a hierarching fleet, which obviously has operations on automation at, and then you have your individual instances that actually have all the technologies that we're really familiar with, especially vCenter and vSphere, but also things like vSAN and NSX and those toolings. Deployed versus converged, man, the people that are moving will really know this already. If you haven't made your journey from vSphere 8 to vSphere 9, we're going to talk about that in depth. I mean, Alex has gone through the converge workflow. I'm going through it right now in the lab environment that I have that's semi-production. So like, the true brownfield. So that's going to be one thing we hit on. And then of course, principal and supplemental storage, which again, dramatically different, what that actually means in today's time. It used to mean a lot from the automation workflows, but as you guys have probably seen, there is a KB article of like how to support iSCSI as principal storage out there. The lines have blurred between principal and supplemental storage. At the end of the day, is you can use any storage that's on the VCF 9 HCL is really what it comes down to. So let's hit the next slide, Alex. So this will be things you're familiar with. This is the Everpure kind of branded version of how we look at this architecture for the fleet where you have operations and automation. We're missing some things now, Alex. Like we need to update this for like the management service VMs, that Kubernetes cluster you get deployed in a VCF instance. And obviously there'll be some nuances. If you're a VVF customer, you still have some of these toolings, but not access to all of them. But like we mentioned in the previous, you have your in the previous slide, you have the fleet level that has operations and automation. Then you have the instance level that has like vCenter, vSphere, NSX, and then you'll have management domains and workload domains. Talk about another thing that's changed too. Management domain, as you guys probably know, it used to be only management VMs. Now there's flexibility to run workload VMs in the management domain, right? So again, kudos to VMware on the flexibility of what VCF is, and I think that's what really enables a lot of people to take on this move. So if you haven't worked with our products before, we integrate across the stack because we've been doing it for over 10 years. Really since the inception, like we had a plugin only within a couple of years of actually creating our UI, which is Purity for FlashArray. Like we have been thinking about VMware from the crux. It was one of our core use cases when we came onto the scene in the 2012 timeframe where we said, flash for all. And so you'll be familiar with Everpure from the FlashArray family for block. Alex has a great conversation coming up around it's not just FlashArray, it's also all of our other data services that we offer now, not just our FlashArray block and file unified SAM. But we've had integrations like the vSphere plugin for a long time. Fusion's a really exciting, enterprise data cloud technology that we've created to bring these all together. So you're used to vCenter managing, and VCF now, multiple fleets and multiple clusters and multiple data centers. We're doing that with Fusion for our array so that you can log into one array and provision resources on another and create policy-driven functionality. We have our Everpure Resilient Service if you're looking for BCA, business continuity and disaster recovery tooling. Pure One is an awesome technology. It comes all of our arrays, unless you're on a dark site, sends this telemetry up to our site where 86% plus of our support tickets are auto-generated, which is really nice for customers. They can rest assured that we're monitoring along with them their arrays to make sure that you stay up and online. And then you back this all with the evergreen model, where if you haven't, heard of Everpure before, if I just were to summarize it real quickly, how nice would it be to move to one SAN and not have to upgrade ever again? This is everything in our systems is really stateless, so we can come in and swap out controllers, do capacity consolidation, change out chassis, all while during business operations, and that's been one of the cruxes of what's made Everpure so successful is that model and that ever modern model. I didn't really touch on the management pack, content pack, and workloads. We're going to dive deeper into these integrations in Alex's section. But this is, just to reiterate, none of this is necessarily new for us. Like, VCF is 10 years old. We've been making these integrations and all these different points, whether it's ops, automation, vCenter, the whole suite. So that's been super exciting. Let's go to the next slide. So 3 paths to VCF 9.1. This is where I think some confusion is happening out with customers because this is not, we've been doing VMware for 20, 25 years one way, right? Like really, you upgrade your vCenter and then you upgrade your ESXi host if you're just like a vSphere vCenter shop. Obviously, there's interoperability into Horizon, now Omnissa, or NSX, that you had to make sure that there are certain steps in all of those things, and VCF really simplifies all those things. But if you're a VMware customer that just use vCenter and vSphere, you're used to one way of doing it. Now there's this converge or greenfield workflow that you have to become familiar with during your upgrade to 9. So, one pathway is greenfield, and customers are doing this. I wouldn't say it's the majority, but some customers are basically getting brand new infrastructure, hardware included, standing up a VCF instance from scratch. And the greenfield installer is really nice for that because obviously get your DNS entries in and make sure forward and reverse is all set up for all the different tooling that you're going to have. But then you just click go and it goes, right? And so there are nuances we're going to talk about here of when you do the greenfield installer, that UI workload is coded for certain storage types. So it is restricted in that perspective. But a lot of people are also going the converged approach, which is sort of the brownfield upgrade, where you basically take an existing vCenter instance and you consume it into VCF. And the nice thing about that is that there is no workflow that inspects what storage you're pulling over, as long as it's on the HCL and it runs VMFS, NFS. It doesn't matter the protocol used, it works, right? And so that's actually that KB I'm referring to. If you want to go look at some of the ones we'll talk about that aren't on this UI workflow in the greenfield, that's how customers do that even in a semi-greenfield environment, is they build it kind of more manual and then they converge it into a VCF instance. And then, of course, if you're on what was proper VCF with SCDC Manager pre-9, there are upgrade processes for that too. And that's another way to get to VCF 9.1. So let's double click into some of these different paths. So the greenfield installer, it's a bit of an eye chart. You guys will get copies of this. You'll see the recording. So I'm going to summarize this a bit. Once you get to the storage part of the UI workflow for the greenfield installer, there are only 2 external storage options that are supported. So that is fiber channel via VMFS and then NFS, and that's NFS v3. So if I'm a fiber channel shop, obviously I'm going to stick to fiber channel, but I'm going to have to do some, before the installer, like prereqs. I'm going to have to go ahead and make sure that ESXi is installed, which isn't required in any greenfield install, but I'm going to have to create a data store and provision it to my host. I have to make sure it's zoned to the FlashArray. That is pre-work you'll have to do, because what it's going to ask for in a field is, which data store am I going to? Like, where am I deploying my resources for NSX? Automation, if you're deploying it, the VCF MS services, I believe, are VCF MS, I think is what we're referring to them now, and any of the other tooling in VCF. So some pre-work that has to be done there. If you're an Ethernet shop and you want to use the greenfield installer, Ethernet meaning maybe you're iSCSI, but you want to use the greenfield installer in that workflow, The nice thing about FlashArray is it's a unified storage system. So you can, present an NFS v3 share, and this is even easier. You just got to make sure that you have your networking and connectivity set up, but you don't need to provision the data store. You just give it the mount point. It goes in and makes that data store for you, so it's even simpler. So at the end of the day, you have to do this before you log into the installer, and then you fill those fields in for storage, and then it deploys all the tooling that you expect it to deploy, and you're off to the races. So that's greenfield. What about converged? What is this converged workflow? So it's like a brownfield import if you think about it. So what it's doing is it's going to go through some validations to make sure that your infrastructure is ready to be converged into VCF. The way I'm doing it right now in my instance is I upgraded my vCenter and my ESXi host, and I deployed the VCF installer. I also had to make an ops instance with the licensing server. So, not necessarily in that order, but all those things had to be done as prerequisites. And now I'm going through the VCF installer workflow, where we're doing this converged, and it's going to do pre-checks and you still add your DNS, your FQDNs for NSX and the other tools that are going to be deployed. It goes through a check to make sure that everything's ready and the resources are available, and then it simply pulls that into a new VCF fleet and inside of a VCF instance, and you're off to the races. And there is no storage requirement around just being fiber channel or just being NFS. It'll support anything that's really on the VCF 9 HCL, which is any modern FlashArray product that you have out there that you've kept up on support.
Yeah,
Um,
and it
yeah.
doesn't even need to just be with like long running existing environments, right? Like if you're primarily an iSCSI shop and you're not wanting to do NFS for a greenfield, you can still deploy your vCenter 9.1 and get 9.1 on ESXi host deployed on there, configure external storage, all that stuff like you normally would, and then do the converged workflow for that one. And so it's kind of a pseudo greenfield, but you're doing the converged workflow to pull into that. We've done that with iSCSI and NVMe TCP and NVMe FC as well, just to validate how that ends up burning through. And it works pretty well for that one. A lot smoother than trying to do that in VCF5. Trying to do the brownfield import with iSCSI and VCF5 was a challenging workflow.
Yeah. There's been some great chatter in the chat already. Hey, we've got 97 people here. Let us know. Put in the chat. I'm curious where people are at in their nine journey. Like I see one person mention that they've got one VCF 9 instance stood up already as pure as the backend. That's awesome to hear. Who else has VCF 9? Put it in the chat. We'd like to track that. I mean, Alex, spot check me on this, but even Accelerate, we're asking, who's actually started the process, and only like 1 or 2% of hands would go up. So
Yeah.
it's understandable because, like I had mentioned, this is different than what we're used to, right? There's this whole converge process, feels foreign. We're kind of stumbling, some of us are stumbling through it. Documentation's getting better. There's more, stuff out there to help you understand what's out there. But we love to hear from you guys of where you're at and see if that 1 to 2% suddenly starting to move to like 20, 25%, et cetera. So definitely keep it going in the chat. And then also, use the Q&A like Tristan mentioned for any questions you have around supportability. I did catch one in the chat that was in the Q&A around, is there any, let's see here, there was an
Like a
ask.
lab to run through
Yeah.
it.
I don't think we have
Um,
it in test drive yet, right, Alex?
no, not with the whole VCF with Everpure, just a lot of resources for
Yeah.
test drive. So
That's a
if
yeah.
reach out to your account team, like if there's an opportunity open that you're working with some account teams from Everpure, they could potentially get something set up for you if you really need it as part of that deal. Definitely work with your account teams to go through that one.
Yeah. And then, of course, you reach out to your account teams that could also engage me as a field solutions architect. We have a couple instances up if you want to see something specifically or see a demo. But that is a great call out for something for me to follow up on with Mike from our test drive team of, where are we at with VCF 9 test drive, where if you're not familiar with test drive, it'll be one of the things that we'll talk about at the end. You can basically get a voucher from your account team that's very much like a hands-on lab. And we've got a wide swath of things for object and Kubernetes and all sorts of things. So VCF 9 is definitely one I know we're thinking of. I just don't know where we're at on that just yet. But moving back here to the presentation. So why is storage more important than ever? Listen, one is long-term flexibility. We're seeing things like some physical deployments of some really intense databases. The market is very dynamic, and having external storage that is compatible with different operating systems really can be a benefit to any company. And so that's one thing I would call out. I worked on vSAN for a while. It's a great technology, but I think we've kind of moved from the honeymoon period of HCI. We understand where it fits and where it doesn't. There are use cases for it, and there's also some really bad scenarios that are not great uses for it. And so, what we find a lot of times, external storage in a majority of those use cases can drive down TCO and really increase ROI when you have compute and storage separately. I mean, we even see that in modern applications being built is, the whole point is a lot of these stateless pods that get deployed are to be compute only, and you run storage on object, right? So like separating compute and storage, I think is more of the mantra is going on, not just in infrastructure, but also in modern applications, and that goes into a lot of our capabilities. We have a FlashBlade and object and our strong offerings there. And then the other thing I'd say is also having external storage, especially in this world of ransomware and the speed of attacks that's happening. We have a technology called safe mode that can basically ratchet up a snapshot to make it immutable, and also add process behind it to make sure that you can't like turn it off. Like you have to have more than one manager or administrator confirm turning it from 7 days down to 3 days, right? So it's part technology and part process. It's one of the things I love about this company is it's not always just technology, it's also the business model and the operations behind it and how you deliver it that make it a full solution. So just some things to think about. These are three reasons why I think external storage, especially in the day of VCF, are super, super important. We've touched on a couple of these. Eliminate stranded compute and storage. That's where you can, independently scale. It used to be we were not the cheapest game in town. But man, that's changing now with how expensive x86 architecture is getting. I've seen server builds upwards of $1 million with fully stuffed RAM and other things. So like it's really funny how the economics have been kind of churning over the last 6 months. You probably see this PC behind me. I built this in November. The memory sticks on these have gone up 4x on Amazon when I originally bought it. It is crazy out there. Limit administrative overhead. That's one thing people love about the Everpure product is the simplicity of purity. We don't tell you what replication factors to choose or if you do dedupe and compression or not. All services on all the time, all with low latency and high performance. That is the mantra. As simple as possible. We tune it to be as fast as possible and efficient at the same time, so you don't have to make those decisions yourself, and make it to where it's just radically simple to configure and use this product. And that goes into like the vSphere plugin and things we'll talk about. And then, of course, lower TCO and ROI. And again, that's moving ever in our favor because not a lot of people know this, but we actually make our own flash modules. They're called DFMs or distributed flash modules. So we don't just take commodity SSDs off the shelf. We use NAND NVMe devices that we have created that work specially attuned to our Purity operating system because we really massage the NAND, and that leads to lower failure rates. And especially now in this supply chain ordeal, more control over the economics of it. This is so big. This is like if you do follow the market and look at some of our releases, we actually now have, we have a hyperscaler that uses this technology, which is really exciting. Let's go to the next slide. And this is where I'll turn it over to Alex. He's been working with all of our integrations for such a long time. Take us through it.
Yeah, I did see one question in there with someone that was running vVols, vSphere 8, and any of the challenges there. I did want to clarify thing. We usually have a slide on there about that. Make sure we update that in the future. So there can be some challenges with it, right? In VCF 9, vvols did was deprecated. It's still technically supported as part of there. Now to get like extended support, VMware does like you to go through a process of, filling out this form and getting a meeting with them, but that doesn't prevent you from upgrading. Now, with that said, that was specifically with 9.0. 9.1 was still in deprecated state, but Matt and I just were running through an upgrade or a converged workflow process into 9.1 but it kind of broke vvols. And so we've been digging into that. I've got some of our engineering team kind of looking through there and seeing what changed in VCF 9.1, along with what potentially changed in Purity 6.10, 6.11, or 6.12, and seeing what we need to do to go ahead and fix that. So if you are using vvols on 8 and looking to upgrade and continue to use vvols, reach out to us, reach out to your account team and see if you can get a follow-up meeting with Matt or myself to kind of go through those ones. Because you might want to either wait until we root cause and get a fix for this out, or VMware gets a fix for it out, or look at what your options are. So yeah, I won't spend too much time on it, but I spent a good chunk of my time writing and advocating for vvols. It was a great technology, and there's a lot of lessons learned there that'll continue to stick for there. It was a technology that was definitely differential. So definitely something we loved. Okay, now digging into here to our integrations. So generally with our integrations, we kick off right with our vSphere client plugin. It is typically our most widely adopted integration and extension with our customers, etc. VMware customers, obviously. And it automates and simplifies a lot of different workflows when managing your VMware infrastructure with storage. One of the things that we recently actually added in was our Fusion support. So Fusion allows you to manage a group of arrays as a fleet from any which one of them. And so now when I do a query to a single array in that fleet, I can go ahead and pull up other arrays that are part of that one. And I can issue commands to each one of them. And there's also additional features that we're building into Purity that would require this fleet concept to be established. So something like adding different arrays to my fleet would allow me to go ahead and add all of the arrays there and get some more granular control. Updating my host or host group objects, rather than selecting individual arrays for that, I can do the entire fleet of arrays. So it does help extend some of those different aspects to it. And also when provisioning new VMFS data stores from there, we get the option of being able to use our presets and deploying workloads where those VMFS data stores will be part of a single workload there. So there's some pretty cool stuff there. Generally, the biggest usage or the ones that customers get the most excited about are the ability to automate workflows like being able to revert or recover a VM to a specific point in time from a VMFS snapshot, an NFS snapshot, or if you were still using vvols, you can do that there. Additionally, being able to undelete a VM that was deleted in there, but there's a snapshot for it. The undelete process is great too. And even being able to schedule unmap. This is actually something that I just recently used. I know I generally would just do the ESX CLI commands and run the there, but sometimes it's nice just being able to right click on a data store and being able to just issue a unmap from a specific ESXi host. Did a bunch of storage vMotions off of that data store, needed to reclaim space, and it was just way quicker to do that. So, but it's a great plugin and something that we've been adding a lot of new features into and definitely want to continue to advocate.
I'll only add just to underline and bullet point that we continue to iterate on this. Like it's continued to have roadmap features added to it. Like I know I have a couple of MSPs that want certain workflows for how we do dynamic discovery and iSCSI. And then one of the favorite features that Alex mentioned that people really love is the recover from snapshot. I mean, that dramatically runs down, especially on block, the amount of clicks and potential misconfiguration you can do, through that. So again, just ease of use and speed is what that really drives. It's great.
Yep. And next is our Pure One integration. So one of the things that we deployed a while back was a VM analytics, virtual machine analytics. VM that can be deployed, and you can connect those with a read-only user to your vCenters, and it would go ahead and collect information for your environment. And so that way you could get insights into an entire topology map, and I believe that should actually be on the next slide. Maybe I'll go to that one first and then come back to this one. So it lets you build out this entire kind of topology mapping of your environment and allows us to get performance, capacity, and general uh, metrics from the environment to help build out. And so we can actually map individual virtual disks to the exact volume and array that's on. And I can actually look at stuff like IOPS, bandwidth, and even latency. And so I can see like, hey, there was this big latency spike that happened there. And I can drill into that individual VM or group of VMs and really dig into, well, why was the latency? Did the array have a problem? Like, was there array-based latency? Or was it just a VM-based latency? And so it allows you to do really good troubleshooting. Now, this isn't live, like there's an hour to 2 hour delay here. And so there is that part of it. If you're having a live problem, this isn't going to beat ESXi top, right? Like ESX top is still going to be, how you're live troubleshooting stuff. Even operations, the metrics being gathered there could be a little bit of a delay, but it's a little bit quicker on that part. So it's one of the things that's really easy to deploy and set up and configure, and it automatically grabs a lot of value. And one of those values is this virtualization assessment tool. Now, ignore the per car cost analysis thing. That was something that our Peer 1 and DX team put in there of giving kind of like, it's less about what money you're going to save, but more about are you efficiently using the licensing that you have deployed, right? If you're paying for a VCF bundle and you're caught, purchase them at a specific core count, and you're only utilizing 25% of that environment because you oversize the CPUs or oversize the memory, or there's more workloads that you could put in there, or even that you didn't size the array correctly, or like you're running out of storage on other arrays too. And so it can kind of give you an insight of like, am I running out of capacity here? Am I underutilizing? I mean, this is a kind of a poor example because this is mostly a lab environment here, right?
Yeah.
Where the CPUs just aren't utilized and the memory, is more utilized just based off of that one. So it is something that it gives you more insight, not necessarily for you to be able to print this off as a PDF and go to your Broadcom reps and try to renegotiate your VCF license. Like that's not really what this is for. It's more of an insight into how am I using my environment and am I utilizing it correctly? Maybe there's hey, let's repurpose some of these hosts in a different environment that needs it. Or let's move some of these workloads from this environment over here so that we can do this. Or hey, we have a lot of room for growth. And so it gives you an idea of are we utilizing our license, our packages and making the most out of it. With the cost of hardware now, right, as we were pointing out, maybe even more important, to find that and be able to mark it down. And this does have a report that can be printed out for it too. And the other part is in Purity 610, we ship something called application intelligence. And so this is something where on the array, we are able to basically do a really high level view. We're not like really going in depth and scraping and finding a bunch of different aspects to it. But what we're able to do is kind of see each of the block volumes on that array. Like, do they have partitions on them? Okay, so these ones have partitions. What type of partitions are these? Okay, so these have file systems. What type of file systems are these? So we can see, is it NTFS? Is it VMFS? Is it ext4? What kind of file system's running on here? If it is NTFS, is this backed by a vVol? Is this backed by an RDM? Or is this connected somewhere completely differently and it's not even on VMware? Is this using a different platform? Is it bare metal? So there's some insights that we can grab from there. And then there's specific like application kind of headers that we were able to find too. So we can find out, is this an Oracle deployment? Is this a SQL Server deployment? Hey, like what does your environment actually comprise of? Maybe you've been using Portworx and leveraging the different aspects of Kubernetes in your platform, whether that's VKS or your own self-hosted Kubernetes, and you have that deployment. So it gives you good insights into what's actually being deployed and actively used there. And this is free, just part of Purity. Once you upgrade to 610, 611, or 612, this is automatically shipped out as part of that. And there's a lot of features that we're working on behind the scenes, and stay tuned for some of those updates as we go forward. And without further ado, we do have a VCF management pack. And so it's right here. And so the VCF operations management pack. So, we've had this for a long time, and historically, with ARIA operations and vRealize operations, you get some customers that would actually deploy it. It would be part of their vSphere enterprise license, or maybe they were doing the bundling with the VCF bundles, and they would go ahead and deploy it and try to use it. And you kind of had two different users with Operations Manager back in the day. You had someone that really put in the time to learn it and really got into building out the dashboards, doing super metrics, really building out very specific metrics with it, and actually really digging into these different parts to it. And they became kind of these operations power users. And all they wanted from our management pack was, I just need the metrics. And so we made sure that we had all the API support so we could get the topology of the environment. We could connect to the different arrays, pull the capacity, performance metrics, all the information from the arrays, the alarms, events, all of that stuff, so that customers could then go ahead and monitor and maintain that. But then you had the other customer that was like, I've never really used this before, but it's free, like it's part of my licensing, I'm paying for it. Let me go ahead and deploy it. And then they would look for the management pack. And so they kind of wanted, hey, here's a bunch of these prepackaged dashboards. So in this, prepackaged dashboards, we'll tell you what's important for it. And so they would be relying on us to kind of deploy that. Well, even within that, operations wasn't super as widely deployed, before VCF 9. Now with VCF 9, NVVF 9 operations is a requirement. That's where the
It is
licensing
there
server
no
lives in
matter
there.
what. Yep.
There is no option. You need to deploy because the licensing's handled through it and the license server. So you're going to have this deployed no matter what. They made some UX improvements to it. There's some stuff from the old kind of UX that I kind of miss, but that's good nitpicky because it wasn't a perfect UX. There is a lot of improvement in VCF operations. In 9 and 9.1 now. And this management pack will allow you to go ahead and get the insights. Now, there's more that we need to do here. There's more that we need to build out integrations for it, but it does get the essential metrics from the information. It does also have a Pure One kind of extension connector too. So it
And
is something that we do have.
not to interject, but there's a couple people that were asking about do we have the management pack? So I'm glad you're touching on this. There's also some people mentioning that they already use it, which is awesome to hear. And I guess we expect obviously usage to go up since ops is going to be a critical component of VCF 9. It's where you interact with licensing, as Alex mentioned. I did a LinkedIn post, feel free to search me on LinkedIn of like, this is a screenshot from a custom dashboard I made. It's not super fancy. All I did was a heat map on top of the embedded dashboards. But, if you've got some unique dashboards, go find that post. I did and comment on it. Maybe we could start a GitHub repo of different ways to, look and slice and dice the data. This will be an interesting, integration as we continue to move customers into VCF 9. Really exciting.
Yep. Was a question. I think it was the Pure One. So in Pure One, this is where we were talking about the VM assessment, analytics, and intelligence. So these are not VCF specific. It's just they do work with VCF 9.0 and 9.1 because it's still essentially connecting to the vCenter to pull all this information. This doesn't require the analytics and collector being deployed. This just requires Purity being upgraded to a certain level. And it doesn't matter if it's vSphere 7, 8, or VCF 9, it's going to be able to pull for it. So it's less of what is necessarily in Pure 1 for the app intelligence stuff, and more about we're getting the metrics and data, from the arrays, sending it up to Pure 1, and Pure 1's able to interpret it for it. Whereas the analytics, this requires a collector deployed, registering vCenters, and then that sends it up to Pure 1. And it does work with it is nothing specific to VCF, but it does work with VCF 9.1. The other part here is I don't know if too many of you have deployed or have looked into the AWS Elastic VMware solution EVS or Azure VMware solution AVS, but essentially these are it's essentially VCF in the cloud. Like that's really what it is. They even may change the licensing model where you're bringing your own licenses now. EVS actually has a process where you don't even need to deploy it onto vSAN. It can be external storage only when you're deploying VCF with in EVS, and you can connect to our cloud offerings. So we have Everpure Cloud in both AWS and Azure. So essentially, this is a flash array running in the cloud, and so it has all the same APIs, all the same services, and all those different aspects to it. And that allows customers to go ahead and have the same operating model on-prem to the cloud. And it's very effective. And we built in integrations directly with EVS and directly with AVS, both with Everpure Cloud Dedicated and Everpure Cloud Native in Azure Native, and having it more integrated there. And so it is an option. Not everybody's looking to pay more in the cloud. Not everyone's looking to, using external storage, but there are some pretty large advantages when replicating from an on-prem flash array to Everpure Cloud, or from being able to do the pure ball sends and gets from there to be able to do that because the dedupe and compressions preserved over the wire, as well as being able to leverage the snapshots and leverage the different services and get more out of it there. So. Um, all right. So there is a lot here on this slide. I'm well aware of that. It kind of looks like a big old boiling cauldron of words. At a high level here, this is just showing, well, how does Everpure actually just look at everything for the VMware Cloud Foundation from a high level holistic looking point, right? When you have your VMware Cloud Foundation, this is where you have your virtual machines, just like they always have been running on there. Hey, maybe you set up VMware Kubernetes service, or you have your own Kubernetes, platform that's being deployed for that. If you're paying for VKS, might as well use VKS. Well, that's going to be running there too. Maybe there's an initiative to, decrease the token spend that you have, or a decrease on, spendage there. So they want to deploy some more internal AI or, LLM workloads, and you got room in your equipment for that, right? And or they need to add some GPUs in there, or other aspects to it. There's a lot of different parts here within VMware Cloud Foundation that you could be leveraging, and that we have a play for it. It's not just about the flash array and just running VMs on there. Do we do that really well and do a great job of it? Yes, absolutely. But there's other aspects that you can be leveraging, right? With the Everpure FlashArray, it's a unified block and file. So you and object, and so you can have NFS, SMB, and object on there along with your block storage. And so maybe, when a VDI deployment, like you need user shares on the array, or you want to be able to leverage the user shares and user space on there, you can do that all within the same flash array, right? Or hey, we have this new workload, just need simple object. Let's go ahead and get Everpure flash array object set up and just do that. It's not going to be high performance or high concurrency on that object part to it. And that's where the FlashBlade comes into play. And so now with the FlashBlade aspects here, being able to actually get this really scale out file and object where you're able to take advantage of these heavier requirements for object storage, whether that's a really high amount of IOPS or bandwidth, and be able to do these specific unstructured data workflows there. And then maybe you do have the Kubernetes services, right? And you're looking to standardize on Kubernetes, and that's where Portworx comes into play. Whether that's using Portworx CSI and being able to do provisioning directly from Kubernetes to the flash array, which is something we see customers doing, whether they're on Kubernetes or running OpenShift on VMware, or other kind of managed Kubernetes services. They configure the compute nodes to do ingest iSCSI or ingest NVMe TCP. They set up Portworx on there, and then they, get the arrays added to it. And so it's provisioning storage directly from there with our CSI drivers. And so that does get a PVC granular storage or application granular storage that way. And if you do go with Cloud Drive, maybe you have a multi-cloud or a hybrid environment where you have some GCP running with your Kubernetes services, or you're running Kubernetes in AWS or Azure or on other platforms, but you want to have a similar operating model. And this is where Portworx Enterprise can come into play, where it's using the same storage operating model across the board, whether that's running on FlashArray, running in the cloud, or running on other storage. And then there's all the aspects that, come into play with it, whether this is with management and operations, where we do have Pure One, and we have our management operations management pack that can be used there, or protection and resilience, right? Whether you're using the artist formerly known as Site Recovery Manager, and what was the short-lived Live Site Recovery, and now it is VCF Protection and Recovery.
Hey, we all have brand changes. We're just trying to survive out here. It's okay. We had one
Well,
too, but I hear you. And also with vRealize to ARIA to VCF Ops, we
yeah.
were just trying to keep up with terms.
Yeah, there was a dalliance with Derealized Cloud there for a little bit there too. I remember that one. And then it was
Yeah.
Aria Cloud for a little. But we have a direct integration with VCF Protection Recovery. I'll always be SRM in my heart, but with our SRA and being able to orchestrate those recoveries. And we also have a Pure One protection and resilience or Everpure resilience product as well in there to allow some of that orchestration too. So there's a lot of different parts here. It's not just about running your VMs on Everpure. There's an entire portfolio and data platform here for being able to utilize it. And so that's the biggest part here, to just keep in mind that it's a lot more than just running the VMs. And we want to enable you to be successful for each one of these ones. Obviously, we're storage company, happy to sell you more storage and sell you different offerings here with it. But it's really, even if this is something you have, maybe you just found out you have a FlashBlade that's been sitting around that's at 20 or 30% utilization, but you have a big initiative coming now. Well, how can I leverage this for my VCF workloads? There you go. Or maybe you already have a DevOps team that's paying for Portworx and Portworx Enterprise, and you want to be able to leverage Portworx CSI. And so it's different parts here that you can actually take a look into. And
Just a quick time check. I think we're at 10:47. I know we wouldn't
yeah.
leave a couple minutes for Tristan to do a wrap up. And just a note when you get there, not to rush you, was a question around replication and if you need solutions like Zerto or VMware Live Recovery. So I know you're going to hit on replication too, if you'll just touch on that too.
Yeah. Replication. Yeah, I think we got a slide there. I'll make sure we
Yeah.
get to it. Okay, a couple parts here. So there was some new stuff that came out in VCF 9.1. I know we're a few months after it. Um, but there are a couple aspects here. So there were some specific external storage updates. NFS, so in 9.0, NFS 3 ingest unmap was supported with our plugin. We were a design partner for that. And in 9.1, we added the ingest unmap for our VAI plugin for NFS 4. The really cool one that I was involved with was the vSphere Metro Storage Cluster for NVMe over Fabrics. VMware was an awesome partner for this and a design partner. I will point that out, as they were one of the ones that was engaging us from the start, and we looked at doing this in a better and a more efficient way. Not casting shade at the Linux Foundation at all on some of this stuff. No, some groups have been a little bit easier to work with others, and VMware was certainly one of those ones. And we were able to get this as a partner validated Metro Storage Cluster solution with dispersed namespaces. All that means is the namespace can live on two different subsystems and two different arrays. And so you get stretched namespaces is really what it is. And how that vSphere can able to go ahead and do that. And so it was something really excited. I'll have an entire, session that's going over this at VMware Explorer, and happy to go through those, and we do have documentation. There was some increased NFS scale. I'm not sure how many people were running into a problem needing 256 hosts connected to the same NFS data store, but hey, it's there for them. And then there were some performance improvements on both Kerberos and sparse snapshots. One of the ones that came up is the NVMe memory tiering. And so I do think that's worth taking a look, especially if you've moved off of vSAN, as it's no longer a requirement for your principal storage and management domains and workload domains. That if you're looking to reuse some of these NVMe devices for it, is you could go ahead and, hey, I want to go ahead and offload some of my VM memory, because we're not buying any more DRAM this year. There's no way that we're going to be able to purchase it. We're going to wait for this to cool off a little bit, but we're already getting these memory pressure. And so NVMe memory tiering allows you to use local NVMe devices on your hosts themselves and to be able to enable the memory tiering, and so it can offload some VM. Depending on the article you read in the case study, this could get you anywhere from 10 to 25%, extra memory usage for your VMs or VMs being deployed there. Okay.
Even on the same topic, we're seeing the reemergence of those CXL devices where you stack like memory into an NVMe, connected device. It's quite wild what the times have come to, for sure.
We've hit on this one quite a bit. I don't think we need to hit on that
Yeah,
one
we could
anymore.
probably. But
All
I
right,
know
and
there's
this
a
is
lot of people interested in replication and use our
yeah.
technologies. Definitely, yeah, give this some extra time.
So I did point out there, so you do need to be on Purity 6.10.6 or later, and you need to be vCenter and ESXi need to be on 9.1 and 0. And this works for both NVMe TCP and NVMe FC. I'm saying VMFS only. Um, we got questions around Rocky. It's just the Rocky use case hasn't been as popular on VMware so far now that NVMe TCP was supported. If it is a hard requirement, reach out to your account team and see if we can get an RFE open for it. It wasn't for a sake of not wanting to run through it. It's just the test infrastructure is very specific for Rocky and being able to do that one. And we just didn't have the cycle, the timing to fully qualify that one, both from VMware and Pure. And this is just a quick look. These all work with it, right? Whether that's active clustered, active DR, and our 3-site replication, clustered VMDKs, supplemental principal storage if it's converged, etc. So, okay. And then replication. I think this is the last one. Yeah. Okay. Couldn't remember if I had the other one on there. So one of the things that I've worked a lot on since I've been at Pure is both our protection group for local snapshots and periodic and async replication. And then I was involved in our active cluster or synchronous replication since we implemented and released that. Oh golly, it's been 10 years now. So it's been a while since we released this one, and it's been a fantastic project. So Active Cluster is just our actual name for the feature and the service, and it's just synchronous replication, and it is active-active. This is for block. Active Cluster block is active-active on both arrays. So the reads and writes can go to either array. If one array goes down, we have a cloud mediator, or you can do an on-prem mediator if you're a dark site and can't connect up to it. And this gives a great option for customers that need to have that one. What we recently added was being able to add a third site, not just with periodic, because you could do that from the beginning in an active cluster stretched pod. You could add another array to do periodic replication for it. In 6.10, we added support for being able to do our near synchronous replication or continuous. It's our active DR solution, where that essentially enables you to set up a pod replica on that third array. And that's about as near zero as it can get from the RPO standpoint. It's in the seconds range. And that's something that we can go ahead and use with VCF protection and recovery as well with active DR. Working on getting it with active cluster to active DR. There's a couple things that we need to go ahead and get fixed out there.
A quick note on this because there was a question in the chat on this. So, like, as you mentioned, active cluster being synchronous replication, so it's just an HA restart. Like, usually it's treated as one vSphere cluster, right? Even though it spans 2 sites. But if you're doing asynchronous, then yeah, you may use like a Zerto or a VLR for the automation. So it's more about achieving, shorter RTOs. But the data is still protected. So if you've got your own workflows, maybe manually registering the VM and the VMX file, or doing other ways. I'm sure, Alex, you've seen customized scripting. There's definitely things you can do there.
every customer and every org has a different way to do it. It just
Yeah.
my only recommendation is to not have your entire BCDR plan dependent on one or two people,
Yeah.
because they will always be on vacation or PTO or unavailable when the disaster hits. Tongue in cheek on that one. I've just seen that a lot.
Yeah.
That's why SRM and VCF protection and recovery has been a popular product because it's a very easy button for someone to log in once it's deployed and just execute it. But so long as you have your DR and execution plan in place, it can be with PowerShell, Python, Go, what Ansible, you know, even VCF automation and orchestration. We have an orchestration plugin with that you can build out this entire kind of DR execution stuff. So lots of ways to do it. You can do that with periodic and async, or you can do that with active DR. Active DR is really fast because all it does is it just promotes the pod on the recovery site. And you can even have that pre-connected to host if you wanted it to. And this works for iSCSI, NVMe, and SCSI Fiber Channel as well. So it definitely provides the support on each one of those ones. An active cluster is just transparent. If one site goes down, VMCP or VMware Cluster Protection and vSphere HA are going to take a handle of that one. If it's as simple as it's uniform and just half your paths are down, nothing happens. We set the ALUA states on the paths. IO gets retried down the correct paths that are alive. If it's non-uniform, then vSphere HA will go ahead and recover the VMs on the hosts that still have access to storage. So it's something that's fully, vetted out and something that we've done a lot of testing, continual testing specifically with Active Cluster. So
Yeah, and again, Alex will cover a lot of this in detail at the session and explore next week,
well,
as well as
as
how that
much as I
plugs
can in
it.
25 minutes.
Yeah, into it. But also in the main session where we talk about our hybrid cloud capabilities into EVS. So definitely, check if you can't make it, check out the recording too. That will go even deeper if this is not quite hitting the mark and you need deeper technical details.
There
Or
was a
obviously reach out to your
question
account team.
about the latency requirements. For active cluster, for the synchronous replication, we do have 11 milliseconds is generally what we want the replication latency is going to need to be for active DR in periodic doesn't have a requirement. It can be, you know, cross-continental type of thing where you're, on a 100 megabyte link or 1 gig, WAN or something. Like it's just going to take longer. So your RPO is going to be a lot larger, right? So it's really whatever your RPO, threshold can be. Active DR technically can have a much larger kind of, replication network latency, but that just increases your RPO for it from seconds to potentially minutes. And so you get this little lag that goes with it. And so you want it to be as near, as low as you can get. But I've seen some where they've got about, a second of latency on that link. And so they're only able to get so much for it or 500 milliseconds or however it may be. And, they can make it work. So,
Cool.
okay. I don't think there were any other outstanding
Yeah, no,
questions were there. I think we got them
yeah.
all. Okay. So we do have some more information that you can gather. There's some QR codes here. Most of this just goes to our platform guide. We do have some demos and video recordings on Pure 360. You can grab on. We do a deep dive into our vSphere plugin there and a couple other aspects on the VMware platform.
Yeah, Linger's done great videos on how to use the vSphere plugin for certain workflows. I know I have a video up there of deploying a greenfield instance of VCF9 on NFS that's on FlashArray. So, definitely go check that out. Um,
Yep.
yeah, and
And
okay, go ahead, Alex.
yeah, and we do have our community too. We need Matt and I need to be more active in the community and posting some of our stuff there too. Some of these different ideas and some of our different integrations. But
But
this
we
is a good chance
definitely,
for to
yeah, we
join.
get any notifications that you guys put in there. The marketing team does monitor those. So if there's a technical question, they reach out to us to make sure to answer it in a timely manner. So definitely
Yep.
engage there. And you guys have been awesome, man. I appreciate everyone in the chat engaging and talking about your experience and asking questions. This has been a great session. I really appreciate your guys' activity in here, and um, it's been fantastic. Any last parting words, Alex?
No, I think we're good.
Cool. Well, Tristan, we'll turn it over to you. Thanks for having us. And again, we expect to see you at the Everpure booth next week so we can say hi.
Yes, of